It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I had the privilege to interview the Wilmington Sharks Baseball Assistant General Manager, Nicholas Carey. How are you doing today?
Hey, Brandon, doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Can you talk about how you knew you wanted to work in professional sports?
Yeah, it's as simple as I went to a lot of minor league baseball games when I was younger and spent a lot of time in ballpark, the former ballpark of the Chattanooga Lookouts in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And at some point, it shifted from chasing foul balls and watching the game to noticing what all these people kind of scurrying around in the ballpark, doing everything except for playing baseball were doing. And so that got me interested in pro sports, and I decided early on in high school I wanted to either be a professional journalist and write for a newspaper. I wanted to work in sports, and if I could do both, it would be great. But I managed to build kind of a career and get into pro sports as I dreamed about, and kind of educate myself before I even got to college on how to get in the industry and how teams effectively and efficiently ran. And so here I am 15, 20 years later from that first couple summers of going to minor league games, and realizing that there's more than just baseball when you go to the ballpark.
How did you know that you wanted to start out being a PA announcer for the Boonville Babe Ruth Baseball?
Yeah, that was my summer job right out of high school. I came into public address announcing because I was messing around with some guys I played football with in high school, and there was a day of youth football at our shared high school field, and I said, "Hey, I'll do public address if you guys want me to the organizers of our youth football league in the town I grew up." And she said, "Hey, if you want to do it, it'll mean the world to these kids." And so I did it for a couple games. I got asked to come back and do it a couple weeks later. And through the grapevine of a small town, somebody heard that I could do public address and that I knew baseball. I knew how to score baseball on scorecard. And so they got me with the Babe Ruth Baseball League and asked me if I would like to have a summer job right out of high school before I went to college, make a little bit of cash, and be a public address announcer and kind of bolster my experience. So they allowed me to do that, and that's where my PA career started.
What was it like being the PA announcer, and what are some of your fond memories of being it?
I think looking back now, having had to fill in and do public address at the collegiate level for exhibition baseball games and the professional level, when I was an intern in 2015 with a minor league team, I got to fill in during a championship series or a playoff series and do it. And I think it's just the funny things that people don't know happen when you're doing public address announcing. When you're just in a groove, reading down a script, getting all the contractual public address advertisements done, and then you stumble onto one, and even the person who writes the script goes, "I didn't even know we had that one in there. That may be left over from a couple of years ago." I said, "Well, they got an ad read, so they got a little bit of time in." So I think that, and just kind of looking back, being able to laugh at myself as a kid, 16, 17 years old, trying to imitate these big arena stadium announcers for youth football. So I think the best memory in that is probably once I did youth football before my senior year of high school, and then going into the tunnel before a game that I was supposed to play in as a senior in high school, and somebody saying, number 76, that was my high school number, saying, hey, number 76, kids, that's the guy who does your announcing on Sundays when you play. So thankfully I had a face mask on, or else my face would have just been beat red from blushing. That's how I got recognized in high school football, not by my play, but I was the guy who did public address for youth football. But that's a memory. I thought about it not too long ago, and I thought, you don't get to do that for kids very often, but I'm sure there are some out there who haven't had their experience to hear their name on a stadium PA since, and but at least they get to say they had that at a really young age, and have something not a lot of kids get.
Who were some of the people that you looked up to while being a public address announcer?
In terms of PA announcing, I don't know. I grew up in Central Missouri, and I think kind of the ubiquitous voice that everybody hears, it's not PA, but Mike Kelly, who's the play-by-play announcer for Missouri Tiger football and basketball, and he'll step in every once in a while, I think, and do baseball. But I think that's who everybody kind of voices there in that area. They try to imitate the voice of, whether they're on radio doing play-by-play or being a public address announcer. So that's where I kind of developed. Everybody who's behind a microphone, whether they admit to it or not, I think has kind of an on-mic persona. And when I'm on the microphone as an MC or doing PA, my voice drops. I get a little more bass in it, and it goes from my normal speaking voice like this to Wilmington Sharks Baseball, and has just that kind of switch you flip. But I think Mike Kelly was a big influence on that, and then pretty much whoever else I was listening to, call sports on the radio, or trying to pick up from actually going to games, whether they were Kansas City Royal games or even those games in my much younger days in Chattanooga.
What was the transition like for you from going from being a PA announcer to now assistant general manager?
It's been a long journey. I started basically being a PA announcer was my first job in sports. That was in summer 2011, right out of high school. The first time I was paid to work in sports, to now in 2021. So, a full 11 years. It's been a long path. It's encompassed 2 internships, a couple summer jobs during college. I've been out of baseball for almost a year and a half before. I've come back as a consultant for a team and helped run their operations. I've run a team with a couple interns at the rookie level in minor league baseball. And so it's been a very long journey, and a lot of stressful days, a lot of days kind of down and dirty in the ballpark, but definitely been worth it every step of the way. So it's 10 years worth of hard work.
What is your time like with the Sand and Boomer Baseball as the assistant general manager?
The Sedalia Bombers are another collegiate summer league team. They are in the Mink League, which stands for Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas. That was my first sports full-time internship. It was in 2014, the year before my senior year of college. And that was the first time somebody kind of handed me the keys to a ballpark and said, I need all these things done. If you can find a way to do them without getting paid, you're awesome. So yeah, I took everything that I had learned or viewed in being a sports fan and going to minor league and major league games, and tried to apply it in this really small community in central Missouri. And the assistant general manager title, it really was that. I was the assistant to the general manager, who was the owner, who was the field manager for the team too. So I assisted in overall operations and helped him out. That was the first time I had a mic thrown in my hands on the field and told, hey, we've got these on-field games and promotions. You're going to be the on-field MC and be the ringmaster, so to speak. So I did everything from stocking concessions to making up those on-field promos to player and community outreach and designing shirts that we wore in a throwback game and auctioned off to our host families afterwards. So it was the Sedalia Bombers still hold a place in my heart. It was the first place I really worked full time in sports, and they're a great organization. They're still running strong, but they pretty much gave me my shot in sports.
What was your time like as the head manager of the MTS Baseball?
Yeah, that bloomed from being a manager in college baseball, kind of bloomed from not being a great athlete. I was cut from high school baseball team twice, even though I still get asked if I play, and I don't. Was always more of a designated hitter who hit line drives, and that's about all I could do well. But I decided I wanted to work in baseball and sports operations, so I got the opportunity to do that a little bit with my high school team, do some videography and things like that, and was asked by a gentleman when I was just watching a game in college at MTSU my freshman year if I was a manager, and I said no, but I was one in high school, and he said, well, they give a little scholarship money out, and if you're willing to work hard, I think this is the best person to talk to. That person was an assistant coach at that time, and he ended up becoming the head coach at MTSU. And I got on campus for my sophomore year, and he finally responded to my email and reached out and said, we are looking for managers for the team, so if you want to come on board. So from there, that's where I learned how to do baseball grounds work and maintain a field and build a mound, how to run a press box, how to handle equipment, how to organize equipment and do cleanup, and all those kind of dirty work things that nobody really sees, but everybody sees the product of. Hours spent watering fields or hours spent scrubbing dirt stains out of baseball uniforms. But by my senior year, my third year with the program, I was kind of in that head manager role. That just meant I had the seniority, but everybody still had to grab a handle and pull the tarp when necessary. So had to keep doing those things. But it was a great experience, and that organizational experience really helped jumpstart my career in pro baseball.
What was your role as the operations media intern for the Nashville Venom?
Yeah, the Nashville Venom were a indoor football team based in Nashville. They played in Memorial Coliseum there, and I wanted to work in indoor football among other sports from relatively young age, and went over, interviewed with them. They said, we can pay you in a meal every night, and I did some graphic design for them, designed some flyers and some schedule postcards to hand out. And then aside from that, really did what I could for them. It was a pretty big intern staff, but worked a pair of games before receiving another internship and a full-time internship and graduating from college. But did a little bit of the media side and more on the operations side, just making sure the team was up and running and helping the assistant GM in any way that I could.
What was it like when you got the opportunity to be the operations assistant for the Greenville Astros?
That's really where my career in pro baseball started. I went through a pretty long interview process. Greenville at that time, they've since changed affiliations and changed levels of baseball, but it was interesting, to say the least, to finally get the paperwork when it came down from Houston that said, all right, you've been hired. This is your onboarding paperwork. Your paychecks come from the Houston Astros, and here's your staff ID. We'll have to get a picture. You'll have to do all these kind of standard things that people have to do for jobs like drug testing and things like that. But I said, it's fine. My paycheck is signed basically by a Major League Baseball team to work for one of their affiliates. So that's it is worth all the trouble and all the paperwork. No, and I really got to bloom professionally when I say operations assistant, I mean, I had a great general manager or assistant general manager who's still my mentor now. And he's a general manager in affiliated baseball, but he kind of took me under his wing, and I learned everything that I could and volunteered to do everything that I could to learn how to run a professional baseball organization and a baseball team. And I was doing media game notes. I called play-by-play for a couple innings during the season, and then all of the road games during the playoffs. So that was an opportunity where I volunteered to learn something, and he said it would be great to have it. We're in the playoffs. We don't have road broadcasting. We have people who are going to listen to these games. So had that opportunity, but also the general baseball things that everybody does. Spending 30 minutes to 45 minutes a day rolling up T-shirts to toss out to the crowd for the game that night. Sitting in the ticket window sometimes, trying not to fall asleep when it's a little bit dead during the week and you have a while before the next homestand. And then on top of that, still doing post-game recaps or traveling to games a little bit closer and doing photography and everything else. So it was an all-encompassing experience, and I don't think there are very many internships that just provide you the opportunity to, on top of your regular duties doing stadium operations work, let you be a broadcaster when you volunteer to do it and volunteer to learn how to do it, or let you learn the ticketing system when you have no knowledge of it quite yet. And it's paying off now because it's the ticketing system that we use with the Wilmington Sharks. So there are things that I remember from 5-6 years ago that I'm still applying now.
That's amazing. What was your time like with the Princeton Rays?
In a word, really stressful. I was basically a one-person front office. We had more of a seasonal director of stadium operations and grounds work, but all of the front office work, all of the sales was me or the two interns that I was able to bring on for the season. So Princeton's a very, very small community, but I'm glad to see, even after having departed, that they still have baseball. It's a community that really deserved it. And I think by the time I left, came around to really supporting baseball again. And I think that's helped them in their rebranding and transition. But it was a stressful year or so to come in with 4 months before the beginning of the season and plan all the promotions, plan all the sales, do all the sales that I could, do the things that I'd been doing, like maintaining a website or designing graphics for social media or doing photography, and then everything to ensure that the Tampa Bay Rays, as our affiliate, were taken care of with the players that they had sent us. So still handling some of those clubhouse things, making sure the team's manager was taken care of in terms of his hotel room, and that we were getting reimbursed and that players were getting reimbursed for their travel to join the team. So a lot of little things that came together to make an impact and keep that team up and running for a year or so.
What was your time like with the Bowling Green?
I moved to the front office of the Bowling Green Hot Rods for the 2017 season, and a little bit before that to sell corporate partnerships. And it was an interesting transition going from a front office of basically one person every day, which is me, to a front office with 12 to 14 people, and having more of a dedicated role of corporate sales and sponsorship sales. So I struggled with that a little bit and still found a way to kind of volunteer myself or learn new and different things that I hadn't done yet, and stay on the stadium operations side, sometimes helping that crew out. But it was a tough experience, just in terms of going from absolutely everything to doing one thing every day, dedicated. And that ended up leading to some time out of baseball, and still have friends from my time in Bowling Green that I stay in touch with, that are one's in, one is out of baseball. But generally a good experience. I know that they were set to host an all-star game, and it kind of killed me to see that was taken out by the 2020 season's cancellation. But still some good ties to Bowling Green. I wish my time there had ended a little bit better, but just the nature of a career in baseball and the career movement you have early on working in pro sports.
What was your time like with the Burlington Bees as the community relations?
Yeah, thankfully I got back into baseball after about a year and a half away as an account executive for stadium operations, community relations, and sales. So I jumped back into doing everything and anything that I could around the ballpark. And yeah, my 2 years, almost 2 years in Burlington were fantastic. We were still a very small front office. My general manager ended up being the Rawlings Baseball Woman of the Year. So she was the female executive of the year for 2019. And that was an honor bestowed upon her first by the league and then by all of minor league baseball. So I know she has since moved on to a role with Major League Baseball as a regional coordinator. And it's very special to work for somebody who has that amount of prestige, but also that amount of work ethic to keep a team running in a community as small as Burlington, Iowa, and to do the things that we were able to do that kept us on a level with an office of 4 people full-time that other teams in our league were doing with offices of 12 or 14. So I really enjoyed the community outreach portion of my job. The stadium operations things came naturally, but ultimately, it was a great opportunity, and I owe it all to them for bringing me back into baseball after being out of the professional level for a year or so, and choosing my experience among all of the candidates that were out there to kind of bolster their front office and do what I could. So I know the transition may not have been as smooth for them away from affiliated baseball to college summer baseball as it has been for some teams, but I know they're well taken care of. They're in good hands there now. So that's a little bit of worry out of my mind, but yeah, I'll still look back on my time there as a good time in my career.
What was it like transitioning into now where you are now with the Wilmington Sharks as the assistant general manager?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been a great transition. It's been as difficult as any, just coming in with about a month and a half before the season beginning. And our season opener was last week from the time we're speaking here. So still in the middle of the transition, finding out things that have been done in the past and ways that we can keep the standard of our fan experience up where it's been a great experience for our fans before now. So yeah, it's been a tough transition, but it's just one of those transitions where there's a challenge around every corner and you've got to meet it head on. And I've enjoyed it so far, and it never hurts when you have a rare off day to be a couple miles from the beach and be able to take a couple hours with the waves in front of you. But Wilmington's a great community. We have great fans. They came out en masse. We sold out our opener, and I can say we, as in the team, I didn't have a whole lot to do with that. I was just there to make sure that they had the game day entertainment they deserved last Thursday for our opener. But yeah, it's been a great transition. We're almost brand new front office, and it's a staple of the community, and hopefully I can do my part to keep it that way.
Who are some teams that Wilmington Sharks plays, and what conference are y'all in?
The Sharks are a member of the Coastal Plain League, and we play teams on a usual year. Our schedule is a little bit different this year, but usual year, our rival is the Morehead City Marlins. So that's the main rival, also a North Carolina team. We play the Florence Red Wolves, the Holly Springs Salamanders. So many great brand names and logos in this league. I think the one team that everybody knows from the Coastal Plain League are the Savannah Bananas, and their sister team by their ownership, the Macon Bacon. So that and the Edenton Steamers, a couple other teams in there that trying to remember, the Wilson Tobbs. So yeah, great brands, great logos in our league. And so the Sharks were the 2019 Organization of the Year in the Coastal Plain League. So as if we didn't need any more pressure as a new front office coming in. And then, yeah, our closest rival being the Morehead City Marlins. So we announced a rivalry trophy between the two teams for this season called the Golden Chum Bucket, because Sharks and Marlins are sport fish. And when you go fishing, for fish that big, you have to chum and put out, live bait. And so we built a whole story around that. But so yeah, a lot of great brands, a lot of great teams in this league, and the Coastal Plain League, I think, is, if not at the top of the list for premier college summer baseball leagues, it's pretty darn close to the top.
Of course, in the teams that you play, do you play Winston-Salem Dash, Durham Bulls, and the Carolina Mudcats along?
No, they are all affiliated teams. We're a college summer league team, so we have college players who are in between their seasons trying to stay in shape, or having the ability to get some innings in if they're a pitcher that they may not have gotten during their regular college season, just improve over the summer instead of taking it off. So none of our players are paid because they are college athletes, but we do have a good bit of fandom in our front office, I guess you could say, for Durham and the Mudcats and Winston-Salem. They're all well-run organizations. I visited each of their ballparks, so they know what they're doing. We get to play at a different level, so hopefully our guys play well enough someday and they're selected or signed by a major league team. We may get to see them in Durham or Carolina or the Winston-Salem Dash as paid professional baseball players.
Can you talk about, of course, the difference between the minor league system where you are affiliated and the independent system?
Yeah, it's really just they're all the players are paid. It's just a difference of some players are under contract with major league teams at different affiliate cities and affiliate teams, and then in independent baseball, that team contracts that player, so they sign and pay that particular player, and that player's contract can be bought by another independent team, or it can be bought by a major league baseball team. So yeah, with independent baseball has been a passion for me. Another team that I grew up, they rebranded. They used to be the Kansas City T-Bones. They're now the Kansas City Monarchs, to honor the Negro League history in the Kansas City area. But they were and are an independent team. So it's always interesting to go to an independent game and see some names that you might recognize who previously played in professional baseball and affiliated baseball that are out of it, or some names that get signed away from independent teams to professional affiliated contracts and they're assigned to single A or double A cities. And so it's an interesting balance of baseball, but independent baseball kind of stepped in starting in the late 80s to early 1990s to kind of fill a void where there weren't as many affiliated minor league teams in some cities around the country, and these independent teams cropped up and provided a chance for players to continue to play pro baseball and be seen and scouted, and then allow some opportunities for some players who may not have had that opportunity to be drafted in the first place. But yeah, they're both very fun to watch. And I'd say, if anything, we try to maintain in Wilmington the level of at least an independent professional baseball team in our business and how we do things and how we conduct ourselves as a front office.
Of course, with being independent, have you seen that players have went up to the major leagues? And what is that process like?
I haven't seen any of our players so far, at least from the college summer ranks here in Wilmington, go up. I know the most recent was Alec Baum of the Philadelphia Phillies, and I think he was here in 2017, if I remember correctly. But in being a fan of independent baseball, seeing games, I've seen a number of guys that I watched when they were with affiliated teams who had either made the major league level or they were signed from independent teams and made the major league level. One that comes to mind is I think he's back with Kansas City with the Monarchs, the independent team. His name's Darnell Sweeney. I watched him play in AA when he was, I think he was a prospect for the Chattanooga Lookouts. So they were an affiliate of, if I remember correctly, at that time they were affiliate of the Dodgers. So he got traded and made the majors. And then a few years later, I was looking at the roster for the Monarchs, or then they were the T-Bones, the independent team. Said, Darnell Sweeney, where do I know that name? Oh, I saw him play AA baseball. So he was a major leaguer for a little while. Now he's made a career out of being an independent league player and doing well at it if he keeps getting brought back year after year. So I have seen a number of players with teams that I've worked with that have been drafted and are still in minor league systems, and they're kind of waiting to make it. And I think right now the biggest name would be with the Boston Red Sox, Tanner Houck, who's a starting pitcher, and he pitched in Sedalia, so I got to see him firsthand on every fifth day when he pitched for the Bombers. And here we are, 2021. 6 years later, and he had cracked the major league rotation the last I'd heard with the Boston Red Sox. So those are always stories that you kind of hold close to your heart and say, hey, I got to see that guy before he was paid to play baseball, and now I get to see him continue to succeed like he did when I first sighted him.
That's pretty cool. What is a typical game day like for the Wilmington Sharks, and what are some traditions y'all have?
I can speak to tradition a little better than I can speak to a normal game day, just because I've only experienced one game day so far, and that one was stressful because it was an opening day. But the traditions, at least for the past 2 years, have been Baby Shark. It's played during the third inning. Our own Mr. Shark, whose name is Tom, leads the crowd in Baby Shark in the third inning of each game. And then it's been fun so far. We're trying to create our own new traditions, but I know in the past every run scored has been met with our music text playing Fins by Jimmy Buffett, which any song about big fish or shark we will try to use and use for crowd engagement. But that and just people coming out, that's the biggest tradition, of whether they're just visiting town for the summer or they're season ticket holders or they host a player in their home during the summer. People love to come out to the ballpark. We've had any number of people walk into our office and say, I heard you guys were here. I'm visiting Wilmington. I wanted to stop by and buy a hat if I could, just because we love your logo. So I think it's that tradition of the Wilmington having the Sharks since 1997. That's the biggest tradition, is the community and the ticket holders' support for the team itself.
Can you talk about, of course, your iconic logo and how it was designed?
I don't know much on how it was designed. I do know it came to be in 2008. Before then, there had been a couple logos over the first few years. Some of them were just a product of their time, like a shark with Sharky, our mascot, on a surfboard with green surf trunks and kind of tribal print on them, which fit us, but kind of went the way of the 1990s. And then things kind of get streamlined. I won't say boring. They just became a little more professionalized, I guess, in the early 2000s. And then the transition came, and our logo has been in place since 2007, 2008, and it is iconic itself. I know there's not a hot debate, but there is a pretty strong opinion one way or the other. If somebody likes our hat with the W, which is made out of the shark with a bat clenched in its jaws, or there's the Sharky logo, as I call it, with Shark with his two side fins over a baseball bat across his dorsal fin. So I don't know much. I just know even now that they did a great job. Our logo has aged well. We're going to continue to utilize it, and I know people love it. We're talking today with some gentlemen buying some hats who just kind of came into the office, that we have little league teams across the country who take on the Sharks name, and they give us a call and buy half a dozen or a dozen of our hats just because they like the logo. So yeah, they did a great job, and it's been here, but it's probably going to stay here for a long time as well.
That's pretty amazing. What are some of your future plans as the assistant general manager?
I think coming in the time frame that I did, it's just surviving this season and getting on to the next one, having some time in the off season to plan and be able to put some things in place that we wanted to put in place. Myself and the general manager we each have several years of experience working or running or helping to operate minor league baseball teams. So being able to take that business model and bring it here, and continue to make an impact and a positive impact in our community. The Sharks name is very strong in Wilmington and the Cape Fear area, and we want to continue to do that in any way that we can, and continue to do fun things like introducing our Golden Chum Bucket Trophy for the series winner between us and Morehead City, and yeah, just things like that, and staying engaged with our community and making sure that they know we're here, and we'll continue to be here summer over summer.
What advice would you give future people looking to become assistant general managers or even general managers in professional sports?
It's a good question. I set out with the goal of saying I wanted to work in professional sports, and by the time I was 26 or 27, I wanted to be a GM or an AGM at the professional level, and I became a GM in minor league baseball at 22 years old, and then came back around and became an AGM at the collegiate summer level at 27. And it's a tough uphill battle. There are people who have spent 20, 30 years in baseball and they never make it to the executive level of a GM or an AGM. But there are people like me who, through the blessing of good mentors and hard work and opportunity, are able to come into those positional titles early. But biggest advice is not to chase a title, to chase an experience, to dedicate yourself to more of the operations than anything. More than anything now, I think sports has become very specialized in everybody's role. I think talked about previously speaking with Daniel Covington, the director of group sales here with the Sharks. He spent most of his career in the group sales side or the promotion side. I decided early on that I wanted to have kind of a Renaissance man career. I wanted to be able to say that I've written press releases, I've done play-by-play, I've done public address, I've done on-field emceeing, I've created promotions, I've designed programs, I've run websites, I've done stadium operations and cleaned up ballparks and dived in dumpsters for things that have been thrown away. So I always tell people to continue to learn and continue to read and always be willing to put your hand up, even for the nastiest, dirtiest tasks in the world around the ballpark or the stadium, because not only does that put you on somebody's radar as a hard worker, it also says that you're willing to learn, and what a lot of coaches call just being coachable, being able to take instruction or take constructive criticism when you need to, and then having kind of a tough exterior, being able to take criticism because sometimes fans aren't happy, but being able to put a smile on and make sure that you guarantee in your own way that they have a great experience in park or watching the game. So finding a way to learn everything that you want to do, but also learning what you may not want to do right now because it may be necessary to the team and help your chances of gaining a full-time job and working your way up the chain. But sports isn't really about just getting your foot in the door. It's not about taking a ticket sales job to work in promotions. If you want to work in promotions, as I've heard a lot of other podcasters and sports career advice sources say, if you want to work in promotions, build a portfolio. Write out promotions that you would suggest to a particular team that you want to work with and send that in with your resume when you apply for a job. If you want to be a broadcaster, it's about, if you want to be the next Vince Scully in baseball, sometimes you have to go to a high school basketball game and call basketball just to have portfolio to send out to people who will eventually become hiring managers. And having what I call a collective mentality. Your work is your work, but being able to share advice at any level. We encourage our interns here, if you have an idea for on-field promotions or you have an idea for how to make our kids zone better in the ballpark, come to us, let us know. We have an open door. We can tell you how it would work this way or that way and give you an idea about how we could do it better here. But never be afraid to voice your ideas and take that instruction or take that constructive criticism and build something all your own and having a great personal brand. I think you reached out to me via LinkedIn, and I try to have a really strong LinkedIn, but also provide that open door for people who want to reach out and ask questions like you have today. So yeah, I described it my first staff meeting on the job here, being silly putty. You can, be rolled up into a ball and bounce where you need to go, or you can be pressed down onto paper and have the ink pulled away and show the knowledge that you've gained. And being able to stretch and bend where you need to, but staying strong and staying within yourself at the same time. So I know that's a lot of things, but that's just what I've gathered over basically 10 years of either wanting to work in sports or working in sports in some way.
That's amazing advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Wilmington Sharks Baseball at?
Yeah, the Sharks are at, I think on Twitter and Instagram, are at ILM, and ILM is the abbreviation for Wilmington, but at ILM Sharks. And then Facebook is just Wilmington Sharks Baseball. My personal, I'm on LinkedIn at Nicholas H. Carey, and I always send people to my Twitter as well. It's at Nick Carey 1776, and put my two sports numbers growing up together, so they ended up being patriotic. But yeah, at Nick Carey 1776, and I always encourage people with professional interest in sports to reach out via LinkedIn at Nicholas H. Carey. And yeah, those are the two, and encourage people to reach out and check out what we're doing with the Sharks. We've got a great crew handling our social media, and I do some posts as well and put some things out, and we try to continue to make things engaging and interesting even when we don't have games on a particular night or we don't have a home game.
That's wonderful. Thank you again, Nicholas Carey, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Wilmington Sharks as the Assistant General Manager.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Brandon, and best of luck as you continue with your show here.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Nicholas Carey, for your interview, and best of luck.
Yep, thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.